This is the Sensitive CEO Show, igniting sensitive entrepreneurs to grow your heart-centered business. I'm your host, Rose Cox, and this podcast shares with you inspiring and thought-provoking conversations for sensitive entrepreneurs wanting to grow a sustainable online business in a way that feels exciting and aligned with your soul. Along with my carefully curated expert guests, we share science-backed advice, proven strategies, and the systems we use to succeed in our businesses and our lives as highly sensitives, empaths, and introverts. And by the way, if you'd like to be updated on when each episode is released, you can subscribe to the short and sweet newsletter. You'll also get weekly recommendations and tips, especially for HSPs, empaths, and introverts. To subscribe, just pop on over to the website sensitiveceo.show or rosecox.com/pod. Now on to today's show. Hey, it's Rose, and welcome to another episode on the Sensitive CEO Show. And in this episode, I have the pleasure of talking with Maria Hill about the power and fun of reframing. Maria is the founder of Sensitive Evolution, and Sensitive Evolution focuses on making participation in the world easier and more joyful for sensitive people by teaching the cultural and other frameworks sensitive people need to be autonomous and effective. So welcome to the show today, Maria. It's lovely to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's good to talk with you also, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're most welcome. And before we dive into your topic, I'd love you to share with everyone a little bit about what it is you do.
Well, I guess you could say I have a different approach to working with sensitivity from what other people may do, since I'm not a therapist. And my perception has been that sensitive people need to really own their energy. And they need to learn how to control it and direct it in a very conscious way. And that's hard to do. And so I do provide the frameworks that give them a conceptual understanding of why they're having difficulty with their energy. And then I provide the practices that help them shift how they use their energy. One of the challenges, I think, of being sensitive is that, we connect with so many different kinds of energy and we can get stuck in them. You manifest from where your energy is. So if you don't figure out a way of dealing with the fact that a lot of the energies in the world are unhealthy, and figure out a way of interacting that is beneficial to you and others, you're basically going to be bogged down, and you're going to stay bogged down. And that's not a pleasant place to live from. So I like to clear out all of the stuff that is not ours. I do clear out the not just negative beliefs, but inherited belief systems through quantum healing. That's one thing I do. But also you need to have the conceptual understanding, because right now we're going through this big shift in the world. And this shift really is taking us out of thousands of years of authoritarian and hierarchical systems into something new. And the reactions, of course, are quite negative to that by many people. And you still somehow have to get through this. And you want to show up and participate in a good way. So how do you do that? As a sensitive person, it's very hard to maintain your own center in spite of all of this. But there are ways of doing it, and that's what I work to help people to do.
I love that. That's, as you say, there's so much going on right now. And I think we are, as sensitive people, we're very, very affected by the energies around us.
Yeah, a lot of it is it's kind of sad sometimes to see some of the negative reactions to life improving. You say to people, we want to improve things. No, That's the reaction you get. And you say, wow, that's a little baffling.
Yes, isn't it?
But it does happen quite a bit.
Yeah, it seems to be people possibly a bit set in their ways and used to how things are, and yeah.
But there's also a lot of fear that people have around change. And I think you do notice as you try to release the old ways, you will notice, that some things will come up and, you do have to work them through. So we have to do our own emotional labor. And I think we also have to learn to let other people do theirs.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
That's going to help a lot of things, just to let everybody do their own emotional labor.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. So you've got quite a different approach to reframing. I'd love you to share your approach, Maria, please.
Okay. Well, I'll give you an example so that we can talk about it. So I have this one reframe that in one of my communities sessions really resonated with people. And it was codependency puts you in the position of having to defend others from yourself. And that includes the best in you. And that's where all the shame comes from. So the reason I think that kind of a reframe is important is because so often when people reframe, they may have had messages of they're not being okay or inadequate, and then they try to reframe, I am inadequate. And that just leaves it at a personal level. And a lot of the difficulties people have are not necessarily personal. And it's a dynamic within our system, particularly during these times of change. I think it's always been there. But a lot of the problems people have are created systemically. So codependency comes from hierarchical systems. We've had hierarchical systems for thousands of years, and people have adapted to them and created strategies for living with them. But codependency is really a kind of protection racket. If you protect me from you and what you want and who you are really, then we will allow you to be or to be included or whatever. So it's a kind of protection racket. So basically, you have to sacrifice who you are. You have to sacrifice a lot of your own needs, wishes, and desires to survive within codependent systems. But this kind of a reframe helps you to understand this isn't just some people-pleasing fault in you. Because so often we frame these things as a personal fault. They're not really. These are strategies that people have evolved just to survive in very hostile, toxic, codependent systems. So we don't want to look at ourselves as, oh, these weak people pleasers. I don't think that's helpful. In fact, I think it's actually wrong. But we can begin to understand what we're dealing with and then say, okay, take a step back and say, now, what do I need to change? What do I need to do with my energy? What do I want to change in my life? Maybe I do need to be self-employed because there's too much of this in the workplace. That can be one option. A lot of sensitive people do that. But, that can come out of that kind of taking a step back and having a fuller picture of what's going on with a particular issue. And so reframing to include the cultural aspect is really important, because otherwise you're going to be blaming yourself. And you'll also have difficulty setting your boundaries. There may be times when you do have to give in because it's not practical for you not to. But there may be times when you don't have to give in. And it's good to be aware of those times also. And taking a step back and understanding what you're up against makes it easier for you to say, okay, I'm going to create a process where I'm going to go from where I am here to here, where I'm not subjected to so much abuse. It's going to be a process. It always is. And so, and also in these particular times, understanding the degree to which we are challenging ancient systems that are codependent makes it easier for us to detach, to accept that there's going to be a lot of noise and anger around it and worse, and detach from that and then focus our energy where we can. So when I look at reframing, I'm looking to do all of that so that people feel I take away some of the what's wrong with me stuff, and it lets you shift into thinking in terms of possibilities.
Yeah.
So you're not so disempowered, because these systems are disempowering. They basically make you feel that it's inevitable that, there's nothing you can do, and all that kind of thing, that kind of negativity is very hard to deal with. And unless you have perspective about it, you may not pick yourself up and say, okay, I'm going to figure out a different way. You may not realize it's possible to do that.
Yeah.
We have a certain war going on in Eastern Europe where they don't buy into the idea of inevitability. And it is something that does get sold by authoritarian systems that, certain things are inevitable and you don't have a choice. And so when choice gets taken away from people, then, of course they get depressed. So we want to put choice back in there, but we want to be very informed so that we know how to make wise choices and healthy choices and really feel hopeful. Even though it may take time for you to get where you need to go, you need to know that there is hope.
It sounds like you're really taking the power back within yourself rather than...
Yeah, keeping your energy inside of you. That's really important to develop that skill. And the more you do that, the easier it is to begin to discern when that energy you're feeling is very different. And then to also be able to discern whether or not it's something that you want to be involved with. And you can, even with people in your own family, just not get involved with a particular energy without being nasty or mean. You can be gracious but detached and unwilling to participate in whatever the game is.
Yeah.
But it takes practice. And when you do that, your ability to manifest the good in your life goes up. So, in addition to just the energy piece that we sensitive people have struggled with, we also want to be able to manifest. You can't manifest if your energy is a mess. Yeah, so we want to get rid of all that stuff that gets in the way.
Yeah. So where would you suggest people start? I mean, I know highly sensitive people are you mentioned people pleasers, which is quite high up on our list. How would you suggest people start to, I guess, to help with that in a way that serves them as well as other people?
Well, I think that sensitive people need to get a handle on the cultural piece. And I think I would suggest that sensitive people stop thinking of themselves as people pleasers as much as I might call it, let's say, energetically responsive or something like that. Find a different word because it's so, it demeans us. But anyway, I would try to understand the cultural issues because once you understand the cultural issues, you can see when every single culture creates certain energies they approve of, certain identities that they approve of and promote. So if your energy is different, you will get rejected. But it also, in understanding them, you understand when and where you can work with people because you understand where they're coming from. So you have a perspective. And once you develop an understanding, it becomes an inner resource. So you can reality check for yourself. And that's really important because otherwise you keep relying on what other people think. Because you don't think the way other people do. So you don't have a way of dealing with that. So once you have a way of dealing with that, things start to fall into place. Your understanding of the way the world works falls into place, and you can begin to look at what you're doing differently. And the other thing, energy practices, we do gratitude, manifesting, and quantum healing and the Magic of Joy program. I think quantum healing is very important because it does release genetic and inherited belief systems, which we all have. And it does make it easier for you to pull your energy back in. I do have a practice of always pulling my energy in and keeping it in, and then trying to be conscious about what I do with that. That's something else that I do that I recommend. Intention is also extremely useful.
Yeah.
So you could have a general intention of being constructive, for instance. That would be a way for you to basically set a boundary in terms of what you'll be involved in. So that can be something that you can use as well. So there's a variety of different practices around energy that you can do that can help you then shift your energy from where you are right now, whatever that happens to be, to some place where you feel like you're using your energy very productively in a way that benefits you and other people. So it's the combination. I think that if you just try to work on the energy piece, just do gratitude, you're missing the cultural piece. And so setting boundaries can become sort of a personal thing.
Yeah.
I'll be setting my boundary here with this person, but not with that. It becomes too personal. Whereas when you understand the cultural piece, then you're taking a more informed, constructive position around your boundaries, and you have a better understanding of why it's not just personal. And that can help when you say no to someone because it's not coming from a personal place.
That makes so much sense. And I'm sure being a sensitive person, it helps to not feel that personal, coming from the personal part of ourselves. Yeah, that's a great way of reframing it. And you talked about quantum healing. Can you share a little bit more about how that works for people who don't know it?
Well, I love quantum healing. I've trained in it. It accesses the theta frequency, which is considered universal love, and is able to address or connect with beliefs in the subconscious and directly change those. And there is a process. It's called a meditation to do that. And so in the Magic of Joy, we do that around a lot of topics. And we address beliefs, but we also try to activate energies that perhaps we've never had access to, because quantum healing will let you do that. And it's wonderful for that, because our experiences will activate certain energies. You could be someone who's never experienced joy. So how are you going to activate joy? Well, we can activate it through quantum healing. Confidence would be another one. Self-value might be another one. So if you don't have an experience of it, we can't activate that through quantum healing, through the theta frequency. So it's lovely for that. And it's very direct. And I think, you can meditate for a long time and that will do wonders for you. But I've practiced transcendental meditation for many, many decades. It's great stuff. It works more on the alpha frequency, and a lot of meditation does, which is more for stress relief and relaxation. Whereas the theta frequency does go more inside the subconscious to release beliefs, or it can release all sorts of things. Some people use it to improve their health, which is interesting.
And how do you get to the theta level? Is it through the meditation?
It is a process where you access the theta level through a meditation, through a little journey that we take. We do that meditation within the program, and we do it as a group. And so we go through this process of accessing the frequency. And then we do a request to the universal life force for something. And then we allow that to take place and witness it. And then basically the change has occurred. And generally, unless there's another block, the change does occur. And sometimes it's like peeling an onion. They'll release one thing, and then you'll see that there's something else to release. And that's fine. That's the way it should be. But it's very effective. I've been amazed for myself and for others how beneficial it is.
And how many years have you been doing this for, Maria?
Only a couple.
Okay.
Well, I love it. I think it's wonderful. I've been trained in Reiki also.
Okay, yes.
And Reiki's great for relaxation. It will make you feel wonderful. But there are very few things, and I use the frameworks around culture myself. There are very few things that I think equal. I mean, it could be something I don't know, but I think there are very few things that equal quantum healing for cleaning up the baggage that you've inherited. I love it for that mostly, because the rest is more easily resolved with things like therapy.
Yes.
But something like that, your present life can be resolved with therapy. But I think some of the past life and the genetic kinds of healings, therapy wouldn't address that. So I really like quantum healing for clearing that out. And I have found it to be very effective.
It sounds amazing. And I love how you bring up the inherited blocks and things, because I think that's something a lot of people aren't aware of, that there are so many inherited beliefs and blocks within us. So to have a powerful modality like quantum healing, that's it must be amazing.
It is. Yeah, I love it.
Can you talk a little bit more about the inherited beliefs and blocks and things?
Well, I mean, you do have when you're born, you're born into a particular family with a history, and that history is part of your history. And so whatever the beliefs or even the traumas of your family history, they're actually part of you and part of your energy. And sometimes, the past can have be found in you genetically. So, for instance, people who have been, let's say, in a war or some other kind of violent event, they may have PTSD, and PTSD can be inherited. In my case, I inherited a genetic capacity. Well, anyway, because for genetic reasons, I get blood clots. I don't know if it's a capacity, but anyway. Yeah. So, you can inherit this. I mean, my father had it and it runs in the family. And so there are a lot of things that we can inherit through our family's story of our family's history. I mean, certainly the traumas around, whether it's racism or, the Holocaust and those things, they leave an energetic trace. Mm. And sometimes we can be frozen. It could be, that you don't want to enjoy life because of the trauma in your family, and you feel bad that perhaps they had a trauma, but you're not having one, and you feel like you should hold back from enjoying life. Those kinds of things come up for many people. And so you do want to release that. And one of the nice things about quantum healing is that those family members, when you're healing on yourself, or when an individual is doing the healing, any family member who would be open to healing also gets the healing as well. So it's almost like you're sending the energy backwards, and those people who are receptive energetically in the past can receive it as well. So you're really doing a service to release the wounds of the past when you're doing it.
I love
that. That's a gift. Yeah.
The inherited
family. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. The inherited stuff makes so much sense because people might have blocks within themselves, but they don't really know where they came from. So it makes sense that, it's inherited even if you're not aware of something. You may have PTSD from something that's happened in the past to ancestors, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and there are things that people have going on with them, like maybe an addiction or alcoholism, and they blame themselves when it's inherited.
Yeah.
And I think people have a lot of shame around that, and they don't realize that it's not their character. And it's always somebody's character, or someone's a bad person. The judgments are so negative around these things when in fact there really is something else going on, and that's not particularly helpful.
I'm sure just having that awareness would be a huge step for moving forward, for moving out of that.
Yeah, it's a relief to know, I inherited this. Yeah, I have to deal with it, but, I'm not this bad person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you have any more tips around the reframing specifically for sensitive people?
Well, when it comes around to reframing, I'm always looking to learn something that I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm always looking to connect it with reality. Mm-hmm. So, if someone tries to frame something in a way that it has nothing to do with reality, that's important to notice and understand. So I'm always trying to bring a reframe back to reality, because when we work from reality and we use our energy from reality, that's going to be healthier and more constructive. So that makes life easier. And I'm always looking to find the systemic issue that may be showing up that perhaps I wasn't aware of. So it's always I'm always looking for that opportunity to learn something new. And anytime I can discover something, discern something that I didn't know, that's always important to me. So I place a high value on using reframing for discernment, because I think that's one of the areas where sensitive people, because we don't connect with culture that well, we're a little bit weak. And, the more discernment you have, the better. The more understanding about how things work. Even better, perhaps, than people who aren't sensitive, who do connect with culture. You're much stronger then. And you can use this learning then to stand your ground in a very constructive way, and feel confident about it because you know you have your whys.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to add to my understanding of the whys, and I use reframes as just one way to then be able to operate from a more grounded, honest way. So I'm always looking to create inner strength.
I love that. And I love how you bring the fun and the joy into the reframing as well.
Well, when you do this a lot, it becomes interesting because you can start to play and you can start to gently suggest a reframe to somebody who might be missing something. And, you can start to play, but you want to always do it from a place that's gracious.
Yes.
So you kind of have to do sort of the heavy work, and it's a little bit heavy sometimes. And when you do that enough and you feel clearer, then you can start to play with it. And that's a better feeling.
Yeah.
You can find gentle ways of encouraging people to perhaps think differently.
I love that.
Well, I noticed.
Well, I've loved this topic today, Maria. Thank you for everything you've shared. And before we wrap up, I have a question that I love to ask all of my guests. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused, what do you do?
Okay. Well, the first thing I try to do is pause. And I try to see what needs my attention. So, and it can be anything. But the first thing I do is I try to take a look at what it is I need to take a look at. And if I'm overwhelmed, there are times when you just have to keep going. You just have a lot on your plate, certainly with COVID and all of that. A lot of people have just had to keep going in spite of overwhelm. But sometimes you can ask yourself, well, is there something I'm paying attention to that I can let go of? Is there something I'm involved with that I can let go of that really is somebody else's work to be doing? Somebody else's emotional labor, perhaps? Those are the kinds of questions you can ask about overwhelm. And I also like to just slow my pace if I can. Just slow down and take things one step at a time, because once you become overwhelmed and reactive, that takes up energy. So when you slow down, you can pay more attention to what you're doing. That can actually help you to get out of from under overwhelm. So I do like to do that, but I'm always looking to see if there's something I need to attend to or learn something about. Sometimes, the overwhelm, the distraction really is something that needs your attention. It's part of this journey of becoming stronger. And so looking for the opportunity in that is always, I think, a good thing. And over time, it really does work. You eventually do become much stronger.
I love that. Wonderful, wonderful advice. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be sharing all of your links in the show notes. And I really encourage anyone listening who can relate to everything Maria's talked about today to go and check out her wonderful website, The Sensitive Evolution. She's got a couple of great programs, including The Magic of Joy. And she has an incredible library of blog materials, and there's so much on there. So I encourage you to go and check it out. And thank you so much, Maria. It's been lovely talking to you today.
It's been lovely talking to you, and thank you for having me.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sensitive CEO Show. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you think it would be useful for someone else, please leave me a review on sensitiveceo.show. Just follow the prompt in the menu. Each month, I'm offering one lucky reviewer a chance to win a 1-hour business and mindset audit with me. This in-depth audit covers the 5 pillars of your online business, and you'll walk away with super clear action steps specifically for you and your business. You'll be re-energized and motivated to step into your greatness. You'll also find all of the show notes for each episode on the website sensitiveceo.show. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to the short and sweet newsletter. You'll get weekly recommendations and tips, especially for HSPs, empaths, and introverts. And as the name implies, the email is short and sweet. The Sensitive CEO Show, igniting your sensitive superpowers.